host of the Gridiron.
We're living through it. I mean, it's, as I said, you can look at the 73 season, the 74 season. I watched those games. The 66 season, I was alive for them. I don't remember watching them, but I mean, there's not many people that can really sit down and talk in depth and detail about all those games and stuff like that, because, I mean, you're going back 60 years. So if you'd actually have watched the games in 66 and remember watching the games in 66, you got to be 65 to 70 years old. So there's only a small percentage of the population that's out there that remembers those games. But but we're all living through the pain. And what makes it even worse is this is 17 games. Back then it was 73, 74, 66. Those were 14 game seasons. But regardless, I mean, those teams back then were just really bad too. Really, really bad. So, but now we talk about this. The Giants are presented with an opportunity, or shall I say, Mr. Mara is presented here with an opportunity. What to do? It's he's got three options, right? He can, if he's going to make a move. Right, if he wants to make a move, right, or let's say, there we go. Oh, Giants have three different options. They got this article here: keep Shane and Dable, right? Keep Shane, fire Dable, or fire both and start over. Because now you're not going to, obviously, you're not firing Shane and keeping Dable. That's not happening. It's, so you get rid of both. Shane's made certainly made some mistakes. Obviously things really look bad for Shane in certain areas. His first couple of drafts really, because you look at it like his first one where he had pick number 5 and pick number 7. If he bangs those out of the park, I mean, Kayvon's a decent player, But Evan Neal. I mean, wow. So I mean, the 2022, 2023 draft guys, we look at them all. And, I don't want to spend half an hour talking about, but you look at some of those are, it's a little shaky, little iffy. Some of those draft picks and all, they're starting to weed themselves out. It's starting to look like, ooh, that's not as good of a draft as we thought maybe we had. This year really looks very impressive. I mean, Nuasau, 6th round pick, is doing okay. But I mean, I was not too bad. He'll be used on special teams, and if need be, He did some tackling, right? You can put him in there as backup, right? But I mean, between Phillips, I mean, when they were interviewing Dable, one of the guys said, "Do you realize that Andrew Phillips, according to PFF, so I'm going by, is in the top 5 of cornerbacks in the entire league, ranking wise? I mean, he gave up, I think, 3 receptions this past week, but for 15 yards. Do you realize that? I mean, it's like, that's a rookie, right? I mean, Tyler Nubin looks pretty good. I'm not saying he's going to be able to totally replace maybe an Xavier McKinney, but he don't look too bad. Malik Neighbors. Can you imagine what we can do if we actually had a really good quarterback, good offensive line, all that stuff and everything, right? Theo Johnson, he was starting to come on. And of course, then he got injured. Shocking there. And Tyrone Tracy Jr. And this would be the first time, actually, this would be the second time, hopefully in NFL history, that 2 rookies from the same team averaged got over 1,000 all-purpose yards, rushing and receiving in the same season. It happened one time in the AFL with the Dallas Texans, who in 1963 became the Kansas City Chiefs. But that was the AFL. But Reggie Bush and Marcus Colston in 2006 were the only other, of course, that was in the 16-game schedule. But with any kind of luck, This week here, Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy Jr. should eclipse the 1,000-yard mark with any luck, right? But Shane did a really good job this year with the draft. And just some things are just, of course, the Saquon Barkley thing that looks absolutely horrible for us. But Shane held to his guns, right? You go back. I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to win the Super Bowl and not like that, but if you go back and look past however many Super Bowl winning teams, you look at what their running back costs. Not much. You don't need a $15 million a year running back to win a Super Bowl. You don't, right? The Eagles do it because the Eagles, it's the land of no salary cap. They have no. All they do is they bring in these guys, and they put like 4 void years on the end of their contract. So after their contract's up, they're still paying them money. They just push all the money down the road. They're the worst team in the NFL as far as that, right? Would Saquon be doing, with the Giants what he's doing with the Eagles? Absolutely not. Of course not. So it really makes Shane look bad because you put Saquon behind a good offensive line. Look what he can do. And same thing with Xavier McKinney. Now, Xavier McKinney over the past 10 games or so has only had 2 interceptions. What makes it really look bad, of course, is that the 5 interceptions got the first 5 games. So he has 7 interceptions. So that makes it look really hard. But if you look, right, I mean, of course, obviously you want interceptions. Don't get me wrong. Give me some interceptions any time of the week. And you get 7 of them from Xavier. Way to go, brother. Good job. Way to go. But but Shane held to his guns. He has a certain price tag, and he wasn't going to pay $17 million for safety. Is what it is. But, I mean, if you also look, right, our rookie, Nubin, has more tackles, a lot more tackles than Xavier McKinney does. He has like 20 or 30 more tackles than Xavier McKinney does. And Nubin's hurt. He ain't playing no more, right? Happy holidays. You too, brother. You too. So he held to his guns. But we brought in Burns. Now, nobody's talking about that, right? Right? Burns has been banged up, nicked up ever since training camp. All the dude goes out there, and he doesn't have 800 sacks. I get it. I think he has 8. But the man has gone out there every freaking week and balled his butt off. Nobody's talking about that. Why? Because that would be something positive. Nobody's talking anything positive, right? So, coupling up, we got Kayvon. I wish, he'd get some better production, but you got our 2 edge rushers with Sexy Dexy, Shane is putting a premium on certain positions. Right? And defensive end is one of them. So he's holding to his guns. Now, we could have no edge rusher, and we could still maybe have Saquon and McKinney, and still not going to the Super Bowl, right? But, he signed Burnsy to a contract, right? We got him for a few years. Now we have our edge rushers. Now it'll be interesting to see what they wind up doing with Kayvon going forward. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. So interesting to see. I mean, you're not getting rid of Shane and keeping Dable. Shane has made some mistakes, but I mean, all these injuries. I mean, how much is that on Dable? How much is that on Shane? Right, all his injuries. Right. The one thing I will say is that with Dable, I mean, he can probably do some really nice things. If we get ourselves to quarterback, if he really has some convictions, honestly, with either Ward or Shedeur Sanders, right? I mean, he can sure probably do some nice things about that. The one thing that just kind of bothered me is that when everything was going well, and everything went the right way for the Giants, things looked just 2 years ago. Things just really, really looked hunky-dory. But just as time goes by, it's just like he just doesn't seem to have answers. It's like when things are just going bad, it's just, he doesn't, he keeps saying a lot of times the same thing. He says, like what Joe Judge used to say a lot was, what happened on this play, Coach Judge? I got to look at the tape. That's all Judge used to say. I have to look at the tape. But I mean, with Dable here, it's like, yeah, we just weren't good enough. That's on me. And then the next week we lose 30-7 to the Buccaneers. Yeah, we just weren't good enough. That's on me. Then we lose, 35, 35-14 to the Ravens. Yeah, we just weren't good enough. That's on me. And then we lose this past week. We score 7 points, to the Falcons. Yeah, we weren't good enough. That's on. 34-7. Yeah, it's on. I mean, it's like, yeah. He just seems, sometimes he just seems like he's outmatched. It just, all I know is that if you're a really, really good coach, right, you can take a real bad situation, maybe not win the game, but make it competitive. Even, all coaches go through, if you're in it for any length of time and all coaches go through periods where they have injuries and all that stuff. It's just that sometimes he just seems overmatched. I mean, I know our quarterback situation is not great and all that, but it just, I said, I brought this up one time. I can't remember if it was 97 or whatever it was. Coach Parcells with the Jets. First game of the season, their quarterback. Then he tests the bird. He goes down. He gets injured. I think he's out for the whole season. They had to bring in their backup. Their backup quarterback was their punter, Tommy Tupa. They brought their punter in, and they almost won a football game with a punter. He was their backup quarterback too, but he was their punter. And they almost won a football game. You take a bad situation and somehow you work it where you almost wind up winning the football. You know what I mean? But Dave just does not seem to really have that. It's just, I don't know. He just seems overmatched at times. So we got here. So interesting here. This article here is from Big Blue View. Giants might end up with saving grace of this wretched, embarrassing season for a once proud franchise that has clearly lost its way. The Giants' one-sided, pathetically played 34-7 loss to the Falcons, combined with the Raiders' loss, leaves the Giants as the only 2-win team in the NFL through 16 weeks. That means, of course, that the Giants currently have the number 1 pick. That is something no one can take away from them. There you go. Unless they manage to win one of their final 2 games and perhaps end up taking it away from themselves. Hitting that rock bottom for the first time since 1965, 50 years ago, might end up being the one thing that finally provides the Giants a ticket to potentially end the disastrous path they have been on since they won the 2011 Super Bowl. Of course, the Giants will have to do better with that number 1 pick if they manage to keep it than they did 50 years ago with Tucker Frederickson. He was a good back. He was a good receiving back, but Gale Sayers was there, Dick Butkus was there. They only named a trophy after Dick Butkus in college for a reason. The guy was unbelievable, and they decided to go to Tucker Frederickson with the first overall pick. And even the 49ers in 65 had the number 2 overall pick, and they still whipped. They took Ken Willard. He was a running back as well, too. So 2 running backs got taken right in front of Butkus and Sayers. So the 49ers kind of whiffed, and the Giants whiffed in that 65 draft. Frederickson, with a career interrupted by a major knee injury, averaged 3.4 yards per carry over 6 middling seasons in the NFL. He played from 65 to 71. The Giants had only 1 winning season during his career. In 1970, they finished 9-5. That was a magical season. Tarkenton was there, Ron Johnson was there, and Tucker Frederickson was there. There was our 2, Johnson and Frederickson. They were healthy the whole season. Johnson, 1970, was the first Giants to rush for over 1,000 yards. Tucker Frederickson had a really good year. Didn't average a lot of yards per carry, but Frank Tarkenton had a nice season throwing the ball. And the Giants, I said, were 9-4. They won their final. If they won the final game of the season, they would finish 10-4. I believe they would have won the division and gone to the playoffs. But they were up 3-0 over the Rams, and then they lost 31-3. And then everything just, the roof fell in on the Giants. But anyway, Giants are careening toward the opportunity to have their choice of quarterbacks build around in the 2025 NFL draft. They might be able to get the player they want without the number 1 pick, but having it would guarantee that they would player they desire the most. I still don't believe the Giants are intentionally tanking. If that was the case, why would Malik Neighbors and Brian Burns, the best two players left on the injury-ravaged roster, be continuing to drag themselves to the field despite each dealing with a number of injuries that they are? Tell you what, man, you got to give Malik Neighbors all the. He dropped a couple passes here and there, but you give that freaking guy all the credit in the world, man. He's playing on a worst team in football, and all he does each week, it ravaged by injuries, he just keeps going out there and balling. Same thing with Brian Burns. 2 thumbs up to those guys, man. Great job. I'm happy they're on. I'm really happy both those guys are on the team. This team is simply bad. It simply isn't capable of much more than what we see on a weekly basis. The arguments that rage around the Giants media and the fan base are twofold. Which quarterback is the right one? Is it Sanders? Is it Ward? Jalen Milroe? I don't know about that, but should Joe Shane be the GM who gets to make the decision? And should Brian Daboll be the head coach who gets to try to make it work? Whoever wrote this article said, I don't know who co-owners John Mara and Steve Tisch will ultimately decide to do. They have 3 choices. One thing is keep Shane and Daboll, because you got to look at it, right? Is that, they've never had their own quarterback, right? They're just, they're starting to build the roster. This is the first year that they're actually going to have a little bit of money to spend. They have 57, according to Spot Track, they have $57 million in money to spend, right? So they can bring in a couple good free agents, if any free agents want to come here to this dumpster fire. But between that, and maybe having another really good draft, and another influx of another hopefully 3 or 4 really good players from the draft on the team, that would be huge. Well, of course, you got to stay healthy, but unfortunately, Shane and Daboll have been hamstrung by Gettleman spending, right? So they didn't really necessarily have, a boatload of money to spend when Shane first got here on free agents, like a lot of the other teams do. And, so it's starting to try to build. Let's not forget about also, we traded away a 3rd-round pick, too. We're supposed to have Darren Waller on this team. I mean, who would have thunk? I mean, Shane wouldn't have done it. Well, I'll trade away a 3rd-round pick for Darren Waller. He'll play one injury-riddled season with the Giants, and then he'll retire. He's not doing that. I mean, if he had his crystal ball out, well, I'll trade away a 3rd-round pick. Darren Waller's going to play 12 games and then retire in his crystal ball. Yeah, I'm not doing that. He would have drafted a 3rd-round pick. Now, this 3rd round, he took Andrew Phillips. I mean, awesome pick. Imagine instead of, if we didn't trade for Wall, if we kept that 3rd-round pick, imagine we drafted another guy who's like the caliber of Andrew Phillips, put him on his team. A young player is 22 years old or something, who's got all his football in front of him, unlike Darren Waller, right? So, they're starting to build a team. One of the problems is sometimes it's like, what have you done for me lately, right? Well, you haven't won any games, so I'm going to fire you. I'm going to fire both of you. I'm going to bring 2 new guys in here. And if they don't win the Super Bowl in the next, next 2 years, I'm going to fire them. I mean, it's very, very difficult. One of the toughest things in the what have you done for me lately league, right, is patience. That's one of the worst, a lot of, and I know Mara does not want to do that. Does not want to just keep churning through coaches and all that and everything like that, right? The problem is that, you're looking at what's been put on the field. These games is just like, it's tough to watch. Really, really tough to watch, right? I said, so what you could do, obviously, is you could, keep Shane and fire Daboll. This is the option that was floating around last week as being under consideration. I don't know if it is or not. I know that when I think about it, I think that is the worst of the 3 options. Do that, and the Giants are setting up a forced marriage with a GM and a coach on different timelines, and perhaps not working in unison. That was what the Giants had with Gettleman and Joe Judge. Yeah, I mean, so that's one. That's obviously that's one. And another one of the things is what's going on. What's kind of happening right now with especially maybe like with Daniel Jones, right? You're bringing in Shane and Daboll, and it's like, we did sign. Yeah, they did sign Jones, right? But at the time they came in, it's like, okay, all right, hey, Mr. Mara, hey, Shane, hey, you're my GM, and Dave, you're the coach. Okay, and by the way, this is your quarterback. Okay, great, thanks. But you can, everybody makes, fun of and all that stuff and everything. They signed Daniel Jones and let Saquon go, and I get it and all that. But, nobody brings up the fact that, because this would be something positive, and nobody wants to talk about anything positive. Let's just bring about all the negative things, right? But, Shane, it was a 4-year deal, but he can get out after 2 seasons. He did that for a reason. It's coming to fruition, right? Got rid of Daniel Jones. You have a little bit of dead cap money, this season coming up in 2025, but we're also saving about $19 million too. So Shane wrote the contract up. If something goes south or whatever, we can get out after 2 seasons. That's what's happening, right? So it's not like a 4-year, 160 week. No, right? No, it wasn't even 2 years, right? The 2023 season and whatever, half of the 2024 season, right? Unfortunately said that, but the money, right? You can get out after 2 seasons, which to me is a positive, right? Shane had a little future, looking down the road. Well, what if something doesn't go right, right? Can we get out after 2 seasons? Yep. And they did. Once again, that's something positive. But nobody wants to talk about that. Let's just talk about all the negative things, right? So it's, it would, they're trying to build a team. I get it. It's not doing that well. A lot of it also has to do with injuries, right? But, what's going to happen inevitably is that also, if you do bring in a new GM and a new coach, they'll have their choice. If they're enamored with Ward or Milroe or Sanders or one of these other guys, right, they'll have a chance to bring in their own quarterback, draft their own quarterback and work with it. One of the problems is that they're going to look at the GM and all that. They're going to look at the roster and it's like, they're not my guys. A lot of these guys I don't want here. I'm going to start getting rid of these guys and bringing my own guys in. And then you go through this all again. Right, and if they're 2 years or 3 years or so, if things aren't flourishing or whatever, you get rid of those guys and you bring in 2 new guys. It's so it's really kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You get rid of Shane and Dable and bring in some new guys and start this all over again. The one weak spot, as I said, I know, I said Shane doesn't look good, especially a lot of it also has to do with Hard Knocks. Because he was out there on Hard Knocks. Like, you don't pay a $40 million quarterback to hand off to a $15 million running back. You don't. That made him look really bad, right? But he stuck to his guns, right? He has his values, right? And he's sticking with it, right? I said Saquon would not be doing with the Giants what he's doing with the Eagles this year, because the Eagles have a good offensive line. They have one of the best offensive line coaches in all of football. They have 2 number 1 wide receivers, right? Good quarterback, good tight end with Goddard, and of course Saquon. And as I said, the Eagles do not have a salary cap. They just keep bringing guys in, they pay them whatever, and they just put a bunch of void years on the end of their contract. So after they're gone, Jalen Hurts, the Eagles owe Jalen, as of right now, like $97.5 million in like 2028 or something like that. Why? And that's when his contract's over. Because they just push all the money down the road. The Giants don't do that. Shane does not want to do that. Ruin the salary cap for year after year. Does not want to push all the money down the road, right? Like the Eagles do. The Eagles are in a win now mode. All the chips in the middle of the table. And if the Eagles go another couple of years and they don't wind up winning the Super Bowl, right? They're going to have to start all over. And as I said, they're going to have to bite the bullet because they got all this money pushed down the road. Is what it is. All right. This path would make actually fire both and start over. This is what many fans want, including some going to the extreme of having planes fly over MetLife Stadium. It would be easy for the Giants ownership to choose this path. They could at least then sell the idea that they did something, and fans will feel like they got their pound of flesh. This path would make sense as the Giants have embarrassed themselves in a year they were hoping to celebrate the history as one of the league's original franchises and to restore some of the luster. Yep. Instead of the 100th anniversary being a celebration, it's been a nightmare. Hard Knocks is considered by most to have been an ill-advised misstep. The 100-year throwback uniforms were widely panned and are likely to be seen ever again. The product has been historically bad with the longest single-season losing streak in franchise history and with a chance to be the first NFL team to go 0-9. I mean, yeah. Says, what do the Giants do? The hard path would be keeping Shane and Dable, letting them draft the quarterback they think can help them and turn the franchise around, and giving them 2 years remaining on their contracts to try to get it right. So, said, I argued way back when the Giants let Tom Coughlin go that the smart move then would have been sweep out Jerry Reese and quarterback and Eli Manning and rebuild. The Giants did that. Did not that they didn't do the full clean sweep. They kept Reese and they brought in McAdoo. Right. There's been constant change over the last decade, but never the three most important pieces at the same time. Bringing in Shane and Dable was close, but they were still handed with Daniel Jones. So the object is to bring in your GM, to bring in your coach, and the quarterback all at the same time. And that just hasn't happened because Eli was around for a long time, right? So I mean, it's a tough decision. If they fire Dable, then they're going to have to bring in another coach who maybe has a different. I mean, the one thing is with Shane and Dable, right, is that whether things work out or not, they are kind of whatever you want to say connected at the hip. They all have like the same kind of vision and all of that because they came from the same organization and. They think a lot of the same, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of continuity there. They know a lot of times maybe what each one's thinking and all of that and everything. They get along really well, right? Unlike what Gettleman did and Gettleman and Judge, that was not a good mixture. That was like oil and water right there. Shane and Dable, they get along, right? If you're going to get rid of anybody, I mean, if it came down to that, I would get rid of Dable and keep Shane, but I don't know if Mara's going to wind up doing that. I think he's got the continuity going here. Between going to quite possibly give him a chance to draft their quarterback. They got some money to spend in free agency. Let's get a lot. We got a lot of players coming back next season. We're only going to lose a few players. Nobody's huge. What I can think of, maybe Darius Slayton, Azeez Ojulari, Jason Pinnock, but nobody really, really huge. None of our building blocks, right? Let's see if we can bring in our own quarterback, bring in some couple nice guys in free agency, and have another good draft, right? And throw on the roster that we have from this season, add it to them, and then maybe you get another good draft, another free agents, all that. Especially because the nice thing about it is if you got your quarterback on a rookie deal, draft them in the first round, you got him for 5 years on a rookie deal. That's huge as far as trying to build a team around the quarterback. That's huge. So if I'm doing anything, I'm staying put. I'm going to let them draft their quarterback, let them keep building the roster. Right, give them another couple of years because they apparently got a 5-year contract. And let's see what they got going on after that, right? And just hope and pray, get down, beg this sweet dear baby Jesus that one of these years we can stay healthy, right? And give ourselves a chance. Because, I mean, the Giants got blown out in quite a few of these games, but Giants also lost a lot of really close one-score games. So I'm Mara, I'm staying put.